This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog, coming to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observation number 41. So this week, I watched a lot of dramas. I didn't do it on purpose, but the first movie I watched was the Impractical Jokers movie. And you know, I said, I want to watch a movie that has no consequences, I don't take it seriously, and it wasn't that long, and I'm not a huge fan of knowing everything about them. I never watched their show, so I don't know that much about it. I was trying to figure out which character is which, because they had flashbacks, which one is which, and the whole point of the movie is to take a trip down to Miami to see Paul Abdul, but they only got 3 passes, and they got to do all these, pranks, and whoever wins the pranks gets to go to the show. So, it was okay. It's not like I love this movie and stuff, but, it's okay. It passes the time, it's funny, it's okay. Then I watched this movie about, in, the United Kingdom, where they outlawed, repeated heavily, the same note over and over music, and people were going to parties and clubs, and they wanted to listen to this, and I'm like, okay, so it's not that long, it's like an hour and 40 minutes at most. It's about 2 friends, one with, a single mother who has a boyfriend who's a cop, so he's got to expect to do all the normals, stick to the pact to being a good kid, but then his friend lives with his brother who's like a con, ex-con or a shady person and things like that. And you're like, okay, it's a journey about friendship and trying to experience this music together. And the thing is, it was an okay movie. It wasn't that long. It has some sort of historical, true story element of, what actually happened. But it's in black and white. And this is not like it's a movie about the times in the 1900s or even in the 1950s or 60s. It is about a movie that took place in 1994. That's the premise of the movie. I don't get why it was in black and white. That was the negative there. Then I watched Bad Education, and you're like, cool, it's got Ray Romano, Hugh Jackman, Allison Janney. It's got Alex Wolff from Naked Brothers Band and so many other roles. And you're saying to yourself, okay, so it's based on a true story about, a superintendent and another person in the school district laundering money for themselves. And they get caught because of something silly somebody does. And it's all a true story, so I'm not giving away the plot. And everything unravels. And I was like, okay, it's based on a true story. I like to see that when they do that sort of thing. But I'm sitting there looking at myself like, why do we need to know that Hugh Jackman's character, besides him being like a widower, that he likes men, and he likes young men, and that one of his former students and him meet up, and they spend time together. And I'm just like, I don't care. Just because it's a true story doesn't mean you need to show every single little detail. I like accuracy, but you can just hint at it. You don't have to show everything. And Hugh Jackman did a good job, but I've kind of never liked him when he's just pretending like an American guy. I'm just always going to think of his Wolverine. He was great in The Greatest Showman, but yeah, it was okay. And again, movie wasn't that long, so it's an okay movie. Then I watched The Lost Husband, where you say to yourself, okay, Josh Duhamel, he's definitely been a lead in a movie, and it's, an hour and 47 minutes. And there's a plot twist, and there are things that they revealed that you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that was revealed. And you're like, okay, cool, that was revealed. But what I don't understand is how Leslie Bibb, who I only recently getting to know who she was playing a reoccurring annoying character on American Housewife, where she looks like she's somebody who had plastic surgery, and she's a ditzy blonde, things like that. And you're like, okay, cool. But I've seen 2 movies in the past couple of months where she's playing something serious, or she's like a main role, and I'm just like, I don't really buy it. And then I find out that she produced the movie. She's one of the producers of the movie. So I'm like, that makes sense. There's a reason why she's the lead in the movie. And it was like, oh, okay. It was pretty typical. A widower. And the actor who played the guy who passed away. I've seen him in Arrow and in Lucifer. And I'm like, okay, cool. That she, of course, she's going to fall for the ruggedly handsome farm guy, Josh Duhamel. So, it was okay. Something to pass the time. Not the worst. Then I watched the documentary called Slay the Dragon about 2008 election and about how politics making their own districts and things like that, manipulating it. And it's all about gerrymandering, and it's just like, that's the term of making their own thing and how they cheat the system and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. It's not that long. It's an hour 40 minutes. It's true. It's a documentary. It's okay. It's because the movie I wanted to watch didn't work. And I was like, okay. It's also a good thing that when you're so exhausted and tired from bad sleep and work, that if you fall asleep occasionally through a documentary, you can figure out what happened in the movie, and it was okay. Then I watched a movie with Scott Adkins called Legacy of Life. And it's one of those cliche action films where he's a cliche British, action actor. He's been in plenty of movies, like Accident Man was a really good movie, and he is, the guy who was in the military, was either in the military, or he's the guy who is, as I'm saying, he used to be in MI6, and everybody's like, oh, that's so cool that, he did this and that. But of course, you got the troubled past, and he's come back to haunt him now because he's a single father, blah, 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 blah. And then his daughter gets taken from the bad guys, like the movie Taken, and there's the Russians, and he's got MI6, and all this other stuff. And then he's got somebody he knows, his daughter's in it. There's like all over the place. But the fighting scenes were good. He's really good at fighting scenes and being an action movie, Scott Adkins. And overall, wasn't that bad. It wasn't that cheesy. It was just more of a been there, done that, with daughter being taken, the past coming back to haunt you, being a disgraced secret agent, and now you're just, doing whatever to survive. So it was okay. And for a movie that wasn't that long, it's not that either. Then I watched this movie that everybody's telling me is one of the greatest things ever. That Netflix came out with this great thing. That Martin Scorsese's been waiting a long, long, long time to make this movie. And I'm saying to myself, I'm going to get close to the screen, why do movies need to be 3.5 hours long, let alone 2.5 hours long? I'm going to say this again like I always do. If it's a sci-fi film, it's a superhero film, it's an action movie, it's maybe even like a comedy that's 2 hours. Like you gotta get people's attention. And there were so many dead scenes, and it's like a flashback inside of another flashback inside of another flashback throughout the movie. So you're not sure, is it the present day guy flashing back, or is the past guy and the guy in the flashback flashing back? And like, I'm a huge fan of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. They're great actors. They were in it. Joe Pesci, he's okay. And you're saying to myself, okay, so it's about, like the mobsters and everything in New York and all that other stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. But they waited forever to make the movie, so you're saying to yourself, okay, cool. They're in the movie, and that's nice. And the thing is, the movie has like, ooh, let's make the three of the guys I just mentioned look young. Let's make Harvey Keitel look young. Let's make Ray Romano and Bobby Cannavale, when they get closer and closer to the present, make them look old. Let's make Dominic Lombardozzi of Entourage fame, make him look old. And I'm just saying, okay, cool. And it was nice that Sebastian Montesano was in the movie, but he wasn't in the movie that long. And I was sitting there like, okay, cool. It's an interesting story. It's similar to Once Upon a Time ago that was like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours, where like De Niro's telling the story because he's like the guy that's dealing with all the big time people, and Joe Pesci's a big time person in the scene, and Al Pacino plays this, the guy who runs for politics, and it's like, okay, cool that he's playing Jimmy Hoffa, who's a famous person. And it's like in the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood thing, Leonardo DiCaprio is the real famous person in the movie, and his buddy is that. And really, it's interesting that his character, Robert De Niro, works for one, then he works for the other, and he's interacting with all these people, and overall, not a bad movie. But you waited so long to make a movie like this, based off like a book, that the guys you wanted to be in the movie are old, so you got to put age makeup to make them look young, or special effects. And then the actors who are presently, Ray Romano's not that young, but he's also not that old, so they make him look really old later in the movie. Same thing with Bobby Cannavale. So I'm a huge fan of Bobby Cannavale, and I'm glad that he's in big-time movies recently. And Ray Romano was also, as I said, just in that movie I just saw, so it's good to know that he's doing other things outside of Everybody's Raymond. But overall, no movie needs to be 3.5 hours long. No movie needs to be 3 hours, not even 2.5. 2 hours should be like the cutoff. Now, I know it's a millennial or even a younger generation that don't have the attention spans to watch a movie, but I'm just like, I could sit there all day long before there were smartphones, before, I had my own computer and people had tablets, and I could sit there and watch countless hours of television all day long. I could even watch multiple movies. But when one same movie is over 3 hours, it's too much. Now, obviously, it's a good while movie, you should watch it. It's one of those movies where you should watch it. It's one of the movies that if you don't watch it, people are going to talk about it, and you're not going to know what they're talking about. Legacy of Lies, I'm just a fan of this Scott Adkins guy in action movie. This was a documentary, it's hit or miss. Don't watch The Lost Husband. Bad Education, I wouldn't really watch it. Beats, I wouldn't really watch it. And unless you're a huge fan of Impractical Jokers, then you might as well not watch it. Thanks for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations, number 41. For On the Radar 10 blog, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.